So we're gonna be taking a look at the OM3. Now, if you don't know what OM is, and frankly, I didn't know before I held this thing, this is what Olympus turned into. I don't know if you guys have noticed that Olympus seemed to have fallen off of the map. Well, they got bought out by another company, and so now they're back. Before we really get into it, I just wanna go ahead and talk about the overall aesthetics of this camera. If you guys have watched my channel for a while, you guys know that I love vintage cameras. I love filming on old film cameras and things like that. And this is harkening back to that old school Olympus heritage, which I really appreciate. So the first thing I noticed as soon as I picked up the Olympus OM3, or I'm gonna probably mix that up, the OM3, not the Olympus OM3, is how tactile all of the dials are. They have a really nice click noise to them, and also the shutter sounds absolutely fantastic. I'll go ahead and see if you can hear it in this wind. I really enjoy that. There's something to be said for how a camera feels when you're operating it, and something like this is really meant to inspire you to actually go out and take photos. So I do love the overall clean design, the metal housing, and the tactile knobs. Also, with this, you have a nice little back thumb grip. I don't know if you guys have seen that with other cameras. You'll have like something that goes into the hot or cold shoe that gives you a thumb grip. This one just kind of has that built in, which is really nice. Now, just to be completely upfront with you guys, Olympus did send me this camera so that I could try it out and test it out for you guys. Just to be clear, this is not a review. This is me just kind of experiencing this camera for the first time, because I've actually never used an OM camera before, so this is kind of fun. So obviously this is a micro four thirds camera, which honestly, I don't know if I've ever really used a micro four thirds camera. They have a bit of controversy. People are always making those videos, is micro four thirds dead? No, it's not. It's just a particular tool for a particular type of photographer, typically photographer. The reason why is because you get a 2x equivalent for whatever lens you're using. So for example, this is a 45 1.8 lens, which is kind of crazy, but a full frame equivalent of this tiny little 45 is actually a 90mm lens. So you're gonna get a lot of extra reach. That's why micro four thirds is a pretty popular system, specifically with bird photographers, because they can get so much extra reach even out of these tiny lenses. Also, again, they are super tiny, so I can fit a ton of these lenses in my bag if I want to. If I also want to, I can put some bigger lenses on there. That's gonna give me a little bit of extra image quality, but it's really nice to have this range. Now, this is definitely a photographer's first camera. I would almost say it's like 90-10 photographer to videographer, but that being said, it can do 4K 60 10-bit, which is actually pretty awesome. So I went ahead and just grabbed a couple of clips while I was here. I had to get some massive step-up rings because these lenses are quite small. I just really looked at that for the first time. But yeah, honestly, if you were going to use this as a video camera, it's completely capable, and the footage honestly looks pretty good. So let's talk about what actually makes this camera special, and that's actually going to be this front little knob here. Now, when it's pointed all the way up, that's just kind of your standard shooting mode. Shoot some raw photos, maybe some JPEGs, it's really great. But once you go ahead and turn it, now you're actually able to get into their different JPEG color modes. Now, this is what makes this camera a little bit unique. You can actually go in and customize all the different color values and their saturation to get some pretty unique looks. You can also add in an exposure curve. You can change your midpoints, add in a vignette if you want, although the vignette's not really my favorite, so I tend to leave that off, but I do love the flexibility. And I've actually been shooting with this most of the time if I'm not shooting in monochrome, which is truly my favorite thing to do in this camera. The monochrome out of the OM3 is beautiful, and I'm showing you guys some photos right now. Now, one of the interesting things about that is with the black and white, or the monochrome specifically, you can add in grain. So again, if you're shooting these JPEG photos, which has been really a fun thing for me lately, is to shoot photos that are complete and I don't have to edit them, having the ability to add in grain just makes them look that much better. And I think that's what the OM3 is doing really well. It's creating a fun experience for photography, which I feel like a lot of cameras tend to stray away from. They tend to be much more of a workhorse camera, which is great. I'm filming on a workhorse camera right now, but sometimes you need a camera that's just fun. And I think that's what the OM3 excels in the most. So I'll go ahead and show you guys on screen my color profile that I've been developing. I really wanted it to look super like ultra warm, honestly. So one of the things that I've done to do this is I went ahead in manual and I set all of the settings I wanted, including my custom white balance. And then I programmed that to my custom one on the knob here. So if I go from manual, which saves all my regular manual settings, so I can shoot that, I can shoot video, whatever I want to do. But if I want to immediately jump into my, I call it my sunset profile, working title. Maybe I come up with something better. I just switch it into C1 and now it's ready to go. I also have that set up for my monochrome. So if I go over to C3 and then I turn my little knob here to monochrome, now I'm in my monochrome profile that I personally set up. Some of the other ones look really great as well, but this is just the profile that I made. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool how much you can customize this. I do wish they made it a little bit clearer though. It's a little bit confusing at first, I felt, to customize it, but once you kind of learn the language of the OM system, it's pretty great. I really want to drive home though the actual build quality of the OM3. It is actually very lightweight for it being an all metal build, which is going to be great if you're packing it up and having to take a couple of lenses with you. Additionally, again, I love how tactile all of the knobs are. It's kind of dumb, I don't know. We like these little things as photographers. I like the little clicky noise, I like the shutter sound that it makes, and I really adore this front dial. I didn't think that I would like it at first because I kind of have to tilt it up and then change it into whatever mode I want, but for some reason, I really enjoy that. Additionally, with the body, you do get a whole flip screen, which as a YouTuber, I do love the flip screen. Now, it is a micro four thirds sensor, so you would think with the 2x crop factor, I probably couldn't film myself with it, but there is an 8mm lens. Unfortunately, I don't have it, but there is an 8mm lens available with the Olympus system, so I could use this as a YouTube camera if I wanted to. And another little detail that I think matters is you do have a dedicated photo video dial, which is pretty great. You can also switch it into S&Q or slow motion if you want to. And the best part about it is that it saves your settings across. So if you have specific settings for photo and then specific settings when you're shooting a video, it'll remember those as you toggle between them. So overall, I would say the body design of the OM3 is pretty well thought out. So this is probably a little bit ridiculous looking. These are the filters I have. So it's making it work with 3 step-up rings, but I wanted to go ahead and test out if the stabilization on this thing is good. I have a lot of friends who shoot Olympus and they're like, the stabilization is amazing. And the smaller sensor theoretically means that you have more space for stabilization. So we did a little bit of a walking stabilization test, shooting at cinema 4K, 24 frames a second. And we did one test where we were walking in the regular stabilization mode, and then one where you add in digital stabilization. Now you actually can increase it further if you want to. That's actually an interesting thing that you can do in this camera, but I didn't do that. I just left them on basic. So that's what you guys are looking at right now. Let me know if it looks any good. Now I know I said this isn't a review exactly, but I thought I'd go ahead and give you a few things that I really like about this camera and a few things that maybe I don't like as much. Let's start with the things that I do really enjoy. First and foremost, the design. I really adore that cameras nowadays like the Nikon ZF and even the OM3, they're harkening back to their heritage of beautiful cameras. I don't know, I feel like camera design almost peaked in like the 70s and we haven't really made improvements since, so I feel that way about cars too in the 60s. I really adore that we've gone back in time to this more classic era of design. Other things that I really like about this is just the monochrome mode. I have found myself shooting in monochrome more often than not. I just love monochrome in general, but I do think that the one inside the OM3 is just particularly special looking. And then lastly, it's fun. I love that a camera can be fun. Again, I feel that way about just a couple other cameras. Most cameras, when I pick them up, I feel like I'm about to start working. I feel like a lot of you guys can understand that. So having a camera that is like, I pick it up and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go out, have some good time, shoot some street photos, and it feels very non-pressure, and I'm gonna probably shoot JPEGs anyways. I really like that as well. And another thing that is great about this is these tiny little lenses. I really like that I don't need to bring a backpack full of gear. I can bring this camera and maybe like 3 lenses, honestly, and it's not gonna take up any space in my little bag. That's really exciting as well. Now for the things that maybe I don't love, this is all going to lend itself towards the customization of the JPEGs. While it's really cool and in-depth, it's also kind of not in-depth at the same time. I think that they would do well to label the color profiles a little bit more. I feel like just calling them color profile 1, 2, 3, and 4 is not exactly the most exciting. It'd be cool if they had better naming system for that. Also, if you're shooting in the color JPEG mode, you don't have the ability to add in grain. You do in the monochrome, which is amazing, but I would love to see that added into the color profiles. And then another thing is, and I didn't even really talk about it, but there is an art mode on this knob as well, and it gives you access to a ton of interesting profiles. But in my opinion, they're all over processed, and I would love the ability to customize them because I think there's some really good tonalities in some of these, but unfortunately, you can't really customize them at all. So all things that they could fix in firmware updates when it comes to the OM3. But yeah, I really enjoyed using this just for the last couple of days, and I'm excited to see what OM system does in the future. If you guys enjoyed this video, maybe you'll enjoy this one right here. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.